cosmetic as an industry is something that's long-lasting. We're looking at the longevity of the cosmetic industry, and then how can we be able to use it for purpose of wealth creation? How can we be able to tap into this multi-dollar industry for us to be able to use it for purpose of growing our wealth and for us to be able to grow our capital in terms of increase in our portfolios, in terms of what we carry, even in our pockets, in terms of what we carry, even in our bank, even as a person. Can you be able to use this industry of cosmetics to be able to grow yourself, to be able to grow your family for that matter, to be able to grow your business for that matter, to be able to grow your organization for that matter? Greetings. My name is Dr. Nene. I would like to welcome you to today's podcast about money creation, and that is with regard to cosmetics. So I would like to take us through just to be able to understand what cosmetic is and how we can be able to venture into the world of profitability using cosmetics as designed by God from the start in Eden. Looking at today's cosmetic world and industry, impressions are normally picked by a person on you, even in milliseconds, for example. Microseconds, when person looks at you, what impression do you carry out? What impression can they be able to look when they look at you? So you're saying that cosmetics is a bigger world view whereby impressions are created and people get to know who you are. They look at how cosmetic industry is able to be able to transform you, be able to be better about yourself and how you look at around yourself. Beyond just the mere words of maybe lipstick, the lotion, this cosmetic industry is a global powerhouse that is able even to merge between the ancient rituals, even to the present cutting edge personalities in terms of cosmetic and how it's been able to refine people, how it's been able to transform the human personality, to be a better person. So if you look at cosmetics right now, for example, we think that this is a mega multi-billion dollar industry whereby through it we are able to see the reflections of culture, identity. We're able to see reflections about skincare. We're able to see reflections about human confidence. When you come out, we are able to see your self-esteem being defined by the cosmetic. This is very important to a person. This is very important to an industry, and this is very important even to you as an investor when you think about cosmetics, something that you can be able to use to be able to create millions, to be able to create billions, to be able to create thousands. Because that's the essence of cosmetic here is that we are saying that can we be able to use it for purpose of wealth creation even upon our lives? Just to be able to ensure that you as a person, you can be able to have that confidence, you can be able to have that high performance even in terms of your life. So that's why we're looking at how this industry is defining, how this industry is revolutionizing various businesses, organizations, personalities in terms of cosmetics. If you look at the world all over, for example, we say that it's being run by powerhouses, companies which are excelling in markets, the companies which have been there in different countries. And these countries, they are out each and every day. People are not sleeping. People are thinking, how can they be able to make your life better through the power of cosmetics? For example, if you look at a company like L'Oreal Group, this is a company that has been there for ages. They're one of those leading companies that are in the business, that they're in the industry of creating cosmetics, just to ensure that the various products that they come up with, for example, like the Urban Decay, they're able to meet your needs and they're able to meet your standards in terms of fashion, in terms of cosmetic, how you look, how you appear, how you come out, the ambience, the glow that you have, those are the things that you're talking about here. So looking at various companies, of course, and what they do is that, for example, like the Unilever, this is a multinational company, for example. It's all over the world, If you go to the Europe, you'll be able to find it there. If you come to Africa, you'll be able to find it there. If you come to Kenya, for example, you'll still be able to find it there. And the various products, again, that they produce, for example, like the Dove, these are perfumes which are you are able to attest to it, you are able to identify yourself with it, so that you may be able to use it just for purpose of yourself and to make yourself better. Things like maybe Vaseline, for example, as ancient as it is, from the days when you used to be young, when you're growing up, those days when you are toddler just from birth, you are being, oiled with Vaseline. And right now, even to us, still we are using Vaseline, and you wonder, this product, how come it's still here in the market? Yeah, that's why you're saying that cosmetic as an industry is something that's long lasting. They're looking at the longevity of the cosmetic industry, and then how can we be able to use it for purpose of wealth creation? How can we be able to tap into this multi-dollar industry for us to be able to use it for purpose of growing our wealth and for us to be able to grow our capital in terms of increase in our portfolios, in terms of what we carry, even in our pockets, in terms of what we carry, even in our banks, in terms of what we carry, so those are the things that we are looking and we are trying to explore. Even as a person, can you be able to use this industry, of cosmetics to be able to grow yourself, to be able to grow your family for that matter, to be able to grow your business for that matter, to be able to grow your organization for that matter. Okay. So those are the things that you're trying to look at. So comparing current and the present and the past, looking at the past reflections of these organizations and how they're doing in terms of their product manufacturing and productions for that matter. So looking like a company, for example, like a Procter and Gamble, you're saying that these are companies which are powerhouse in terms of cosmetics and maybe whatever they produce, something like a Pantene, for example. Look at Shiseido. Look at Shiseido as a company, producing that is a product we call drunk elephant. No, we're not talking about an elephant which is drunk in the national park, but we're talking about a perfume. You're talking about a perfume, that is called drunk elephant. Yes, and I know you can be able to identify with this. So look at, for example, like the Coty Inc., which produces a brand like Hugo, the Boss, CoverGirl, uh, for example. So these are things that we're talking about and looking at the products and how these powerhouse organizations are producing them, such that they can be able to bring them to the market for you to be able to consume, for you to be able to sell, and for you to be able to use, so that you can be able to upscale your business when you come into a place of where now you want to use it, this power of cosmetics, so that you can be able to start trading in it. So you're saying that beauty today, as it is, it's not just about the appearance, like how do I appear? And it brings aspiration in you, you feel being inspired that you want to go to a higher level even through the beauty that you have. And we've seen this all over the world, people using beauty for purpose of trade, whereby they're able even to popularize different brands, for example. They're able to popularize different products in the market, and it's because of beauty. So what we are talking about is that we are looking at how can we be able to scale up our beauty so that we can be able to be better, we can be able to use it for beneficial in terms of wealth creation. So we are just going beyond the element of maybe, just picking a lip glow and you put it on your lips, for example. But we're looking at it like how can we be able to use the world of cosmetics to be able to generate the wealth that is so much dire and need. So you're saying that beauty is not only about aspirations, but it's also about the wellness of a person when you consume these products of beauty. How do you look at it when you consume this product in terms of your culture, where you come from? How does it reflect in your culture, for example? How does it create that wellness and sense in your life as a person? So today, if you look at globally, today consumers, they are much more now aware about the sense of their well-being. They are so much aware and they want to understand what are some of the maybe the ingredients that are being used for purpose of this beauty product. Because as you utilize this beauty product, they might have an effect on you. So it's actually very important that even as we use this product, even as we sell this beauty product, it's important that we should be able to understand how does it affect us and what are some of the compositions that maybe these products have in terms of the ingredients. Will you say that this is a natural product, for example? Will you say that this is an organic product, for example? Will you say that this is a vegan product, for example? Will you say that this has got an effect on my skin in terms of dermatology, for example? Or will you say again that maybe it's cruelty free? It's important to understand the ethical and sustainability measure of this beauty as a product, beauty as a brand, beauty as a source of ingredients to us, and how can it be able to affect us? What type of hygiene elements will it be able to bring to us? Can you be able to see the transparency in it? Can you be able to see the transparency even in labeling, the product itself as it is? And then again, how is it being processed in the industry so that it can be beneficial to us as a person? When you look at these elements of what you're talking about, in terms of the manufacturing, in terms of the powerhouse, for example, all over the world, we are saying that beauty is something that is highly levelized and treated, something that, has to be given all the essence of understanding in it. And by this understanding, then it comes that we need to have the knowledge and skills in terms of how we are able to formulate these beauty products, for example. We need to have the knowledge and skill on how we are going to utilize this beauty product. How do we apply it? Then that means that we need to have the skills and the knowledge so that we can be able to use it to be able to make us to go to the next level in terms of consumption, in terms of selling, in terms of offering even the after sale service with regard to the use of beauty products. It's important and imperative then that as an investor, as a beauty industrician in this element of beauty and world of cosmetics, we have to understand then knowledge is very imperative, that we have to acquire the necessary knowledge, the necessary skills, so that we may be able to use it to be able to improve our life around, to be able to improve the lives of our dear ones, and to be able to improve the bigger life of those who are consumers of this product. Therefore, that's why you find that various institutions have been set aside so that it can be able to give us that knowledge that we so much desire and want, that we're able to use that knowledge for it to be beneficial to us, first as an individual, second to that person who is coming to you to seek that, maybe it's your service for that matter. Maybe those who will come to you that may want to seek that knowledge and information so that we may be able to disseminate, and that which we disseminate to them in terms of the beauty, then it should be a right knowledge. So what do I mean by this? I mean by going to the institution of learning, for example, and this has been put all over. And there are those beauty clinics, there are those beauty centers of learning, centers of wisdom where we can be able to grasp various wisdoms according to the manual and according to the systematic planning and curricula that has been put in place, so that we'll be able to go through the routine of learning, routine of acquiring the knowledge, so that we'll be able to better ourselves, we'll be able to better our skills and our artifacts, so that we'll be able to grow in a better way. And for example, here in Kenya, we've seen the different institutions that have been placed, which also have been granted permission for them to be able to operate through the ministry that is relevant. Ministry of Education, for example, the one that deals with the issues of curricula and the growth of a nation. If I may maybe just mention but a few, we have like the Better Beauty College, we have the Diva Beauty College, we have the Beauty Points College, for example, we have the Linton's Academy. So if you look at all these, we have the Nairobi Institute of Business Studies, for example, we have the Kenya Institute of Professionalism Studies, for example, we have the Tonic Institute of Professionalism and Studies, for example. So all these together with the government universities and TVETs, for example, these are centers of learning whereby we need to get and acquire the knowledge that is relevant with regard to even the beauty industry. Now, then you may want to ask, what is so important about me acquiring knowledge about beauty? But you're saying that for you to be able to grow in an industry, you need to understand the elements, you need to understand the dynamics, you need to understand the mechanisms, you need to understand the functionality of that area which you're venturing into. And you cannot be able to go and want to lead into something that you do not know. No, it's not possible. That's why you find that it's important that even you as a person, you should be able to understand, as I come into this industry, of course, yes, the essence here is that we are using cosmetic industry, we are using the aesthetic industry for us to be able to create that wealth. And by saying creation of the wealth, of course, it starts with knowledge, starts with information. And that's why it's important that we have to go through the rigorous training of acquiring knowledge, so that we may be able to better our lives, we may be able to better those of others in terms of cosmetics, for example. As I said earlier, makeup is not just picking a lipstick, and you just apply on your body. No, you have to understand the art, that goes in the application of that lipstick, for example. You have to understand, for example, if you go to the hair salon, for example, you want to be plated, you'll not just sit there and then magic happens. Whoever is coming to attend to you, they have to have gone through the skills. They have to have understood what it takes, for them to be able to do that which they are best in doing it. And for them to be said that they are best in this, then of course they have to acquire the knowledge. So it's important that knowledge is very, very key. Knowledge is very, very important to a person. To any humanity, knowledge is very important, because through knowledge we can be able to empower ourselves to the next level and we can be able to scale ourselves up to the next level. So by this, then we are looking at things like knowledge acquisition. Then we need to look at areas, for example, like how do we use the tools? Are we able to use the tools and equipment that is given to us, for example? Are you able to understand which tools and which equipments are directed or rather are needed towards the manufacturing, towards the processing, towards the acquisition and the production? Okay. Are you able to understand the whole value chain that goes through the production, for example, of a certain product? So this is why you're saying that it's important that we need to understand and have this necessary skill, information, knowledge, and to have that capacity and capability so that we may be able to understand how can I be able to use this tool, how can I be able to use this equipment for me to be able to be productive, even in terms of creation. Because I believe, even as you look at this right now, something that is striking your mind is that how can I be able to create? How can I be able to produce, for example, a beauty product? And those are the questions that we need to be asking ourselves. How can we be able to leverage the kind of information that we have so that we can be able to scale up ourselves by being able to produce? Okay. For example, I'm looking ahead at a time whereby you, as you're watching me, one day you'll say that through this, I was able to listen. And right now, I have my own beauty brand, for example. And those are the things that you're talking about. Can you be able to use that knowledge? Can you be able to use that understanding so that you may be able to create, okay, so that you may be able to produce a beauty product, for example, branded even with your name, of course, for purpose of selling into the market. And that's how we're talking about beauty creation in terms of knowledge, understanding. Okay, beauty creation in terms of knowledge and understanding. By this, we can be able to make wealth because remember, we're talking about the longevity of it. How long can we be able to stay in the market? How long can we be able to be in this business until we see wealth has been created? So we are saying that key information is that we should be able to have the skill, necessary information, necessary knowledge through the institutions that will help us even to grow and build ourselves in terms of knowledge in this area of cosmetics, as we said. So that means then that as we move on, we always have to understand part of the information we need to understand is how can we be able to ensure that we have this information on nail technology, for example. It's about pedicure, it's about manicure, all those things. That's the kind of information that you need to have. Another information that we need to understand is how, in terms of like nowadays, especially, you've seen the sprouting of many spas, for example. And it has been all over, you go to estates, it's there, you go to towns, it's there, you go to whichever place you want to go, you will be able to find it there. So how can we be able to use this information of understanding how do we carry out professionalism massage, for example, and how can we be able to use our skills in terms of building that wealth, even through these services that we can be able to offer to the general public, to the masses around, and to the world all over for purpose of building our wealth through this aspect of cosmetics. Another thing also we need to understand in terms of acquiring knowledge and information is that how can we be able to have this information on how to do the facial makeup, for example? How can we be able to do maybe the braiding, for example, the plating, for example, the shampooing, for example, the conditioning, for example? How can we be able to have the information and writing key and knowledge in terms of chemical formulation, for example, use of chemical in terms of performing things like reformations, for example, relaxers? How can we be able to have this information in terms of helping us to build our stylish, when a person comes to you and they say like, I want you to style my hair, they want it to be like this, they want it to be like that, maybe putting the roller settings. How can you be able to have the right information in terms of knowing how to mix colors, for example, coloring, coloration, for example, is very, very important, such that, you just don't mix colors haphazardly, but you do it professionally so that even if you apply to a person, then of course someone can be able to see the coloring and coloration out of it. How can you be able to have knowledge and information on maybe things like thermal styling, for example? You've heard people talking about flat iron, maybe a use of tongs, and you wonder like, what are those now? Flat iron, what is this flat iron? But you see, these are things that we need to have the right information and knowledge about it so that we can be able to improve ourselves in that area. When you talk about things like earpiecing, for example, things like waxing, for example, salon management, things like bookkeeping, can you be able to have that management on how to run the business? Okay? The management of the salon, for example, can you be able to have the right information that is necessary for you to be able to partake into that endeavor of creation of wealth by doing what we call salon management? Can you be able to do the rightful way of keeping your books of accounts, the books of ledgers of accounts, for example, okay, the sales records that you're doing, the income generations that you're doing, the daily, can you be able to keep a track so that you can be able to know this is how my inventory is coming in, this is how I'm consuming, and this is when I'm going to maybe order the stocks for the next replenishment of my business. So those are the key information that we have to understand. We need to also to have information, for example, about hygiene, sanitations, which is very, very important, the safety regulations being marked, okay, within your premise of business, the understanding the hygiene, as customers come to your business, for example, they want to see you doing business in the utmost sense of hygiene, okay? Sanitation should be clear and clean. We don't want to come and see things on the floor, I don't know, things are not well ordered. No. It has to be done in an orderly, purely maintained well system, okay? So that it can be able to be a point of attraction, that I'm coming to this point of beauty. So we expect to see the elegance of the work where you're working from, so that it can be able to appeal even to those people who are coming, because you're talking about cosmetics, you're talking about aesthetics. So aesthetics starts with you. Aesthetics start with what you're doing and how you're carrying it in terms of your work. So it's very, very important then to understand beauty and cosmetics as it is. It's something that we can be able to use it for purpose of creation of our wealth. And wealth generation, of course, as we've said, will be able to amount and come out of these products, these places, that as we move on, we can be able to use all the available information, all the available skills, all the available resources, all the available capital for us to be able to grow wealth, for us to be able to sustain wealth, and for us to be able to move on branching our name in terms of beauty cosmetics. Globally, it's been projected that this cosmetic world and industry, of course, as we're saying, is something that is growing, and the projections showing that in the next few years to come, it's going to grow even to about $800 billion industry company. So this means that we have a vast and a big opportunity for us to be able to venture into this area of cosmetics and to be able to trade in this area of cosmetics, as we shall be able to be seeing thereby, because it has got a lot of things that we are going to look at. It has got a lot of ample things that we are going to look at, that is going to give us an open view, a bigger view, where we can be able to venture in so that we can be able to create our wealth with regard to this element of cosmetics. So we are saying that the modern cosmetic industry, is being driven by an unstoppable consumer rift, and consumers are shifting, towards the wellness of themselves, as we said earlier. They are so conscious about their well-being in terms of their appearance, for example. And you're saying that discovery, brings also that element of eco-consciousness. A person will want to understand, how am I being presented into this arena of cosmetics? And that's why you're saying that consumers are shifting. There's an opportunity for buyers today to be able to buy a product, and they also want to feel like, as I buy this product, I want also to invest in my life, into this product. And so that means that even in terms of things like transparency, for example, things like identity of a brand, it should be able to give us an understanding as a consumer on, if I buy in this product, if I invest my money in this product, can I be able to see the value that it's able to give me? Can I be able to see the transparency that's able to give me? Can I be able to feel the identity of this product even as I pursue and consume it? So we are saying that it's very, very important then that to us, even as we move on into these areas of beauty products, about our lives, about how we feel, it's important that we should have this in the mind, that we can be able to leverage and use cosmetics for purpose of beauty creation and for purpose of wealth creation upon our lives. And that's the essence of why we need to do so. So, for example, in the areas of skincare, this is one of those areas that is so important, skin and skincare, the products that are to be used, they have to have a certain value. They have to have a certain standard, because any effects on your skin, it will bring cataracts and a dangerous inflammation on your body, for example. And those are things that we do not want to go into. So it's important that even as we look on the global skincare market, whereby there's a shift, seismic shift, maybe just from passive vanity to longer longevity, for example. And as a person, who wants to venture into this product, as a person who wants to venture into this industry, maybe to fund it, you have to understand, how can I be able to have a preventive way in terms of the skincare, so that I can be able to bring solutions to the daily human conditions in terms of them using this product as a daily rituals for their lives. Skincare is something which is evolving. It's not just about luxury, but it's an essential wellness and a ritual, whereby, as a person who is using it, we just do not want to use the normal generic maybe products that have been there in the market, but we want to understand what is the chemical composition about it. It's not just about us having a heavy maybe chemical product in it. No, as a skincare is something that we have to be very conscious about it. We want something that is able to bring that eco-consciousness, okay? I'm using the word eco-consciousness into our lives, understanding that it's not just about luxury, but we want to have it, because skin is about dermatology. And if you look at the entire human body, the entire human body, it's full of skin, we are covered with skin. And any application of any serum, for example, any application of any cleansers, any application of any sunscreen, for example, any application of anything like the facial powder, for example, or oil, for example, it has to be done in the right way, so that it can be able to cover us and protect us from dangers that may want to occur on our bodies. So it's important that we have to be very eco-conscious about it in terms of its formulation and what type of ingredients have been put in place in terms of the skincare. Venturing again into the issue of hair care, for example, we are talking about hair care as an area we may want to dive into. Hair care, for example, is not just about applying oil, for example, on your hair and you say that is it. No, we are talking about the scalp of the human body, the head, the skin with its scalp, and how can we be able to leverage, how can we be able to condition, how can we be able to boost, the kind of products that we are using. For example, things like shampoos, for example, things like conditioners, for example, things like hair colors, for example, things like the styling of the product, the various oils, the essential oils that we have. How can we be able to apply them onto our bodies, even as a modern person, as we're using it? We have to understand, maybe, is it able to bring a relief to us in terms of relieving us from the stress that we may want to go through when we have this kind of products upon our bodies and our hairs, for example. Is it something that will be able to affect us and be a barrier to our skin in terms of our health, or will it be something that will be able to aspire us, to be able to use such kind of products upon our bodies? So very, very important, we should be able to understand such that we can be able to use it in a better way, in a meaningful way upon our bodies. Even that as we sell these products to our customers, even that as we sell these products to the consumers in general, even as we sell these products to people who are going to utilize them, then of course we should be able to sell it in a better way that it does not bring any harm upon them. So looking at things like neurocosmetics, for example, looking at things like psychodermatology, for example, those are the things that you're talking about, things that should not affect our skin, things that should not affect our mind, things that should not affect our neurons, because of the perforations, if they sink into your skin, and then again, it's something that it's a product that should not affect our neural systems in our bodies. So very, very important that we should be able to have that kind of a mind when you look at this kind of things like a hair care, which we are saying is just not about temporal shiny surface, temporal application of oil upon the shiny surface of our skin, okay? But it's something that should be able to help us improve even and bring health upon our bodies and upon our lives. Today, people are looking at things like how can we be able to use the beauty products, for example, to stop anti-aging. And we've seen a lot of people, nowadays we are talking about anti-aging. We're talking about wrinkles. How can I be able to apply oil, to remove the wrinkles upon my body, So it's not just about wrinkles removal, but it's about how can you be able to even reverse the anti-aging using this kind of products. And these are the cosmetics world we are talking about. So identifying the right type of a product is very, very key and very, very crucial for us as we move on, even in this understanding how can we be able to create that wealth using the cosmetics as our world here. So stopping anti-aging is something again that we should be able to look into it by ensuring that we are able to balance the serums, balancing the various ingredients that are put in place just to ensure that whatever product we come up with, it should be something that should be premium, something that should not be cruelty-free upon our skin, upon our scalp for that matter, but something that should be able to come about to be able to repair our body, to be able to bring a coating, upon our body in terms of clinically well-tested products for us to be able to use for our body. If you look again at another venture area that we can think about, when you look at issues, maybe for example, about the fragrance, the fragrance are the perfumes, the perfumes that we put upon our body, that feeling the packaging of the perfumes, how they appeal to the body, the neuroscience, aspect of it. We should be able to understand that the consumer's demand for perfumes, for example, should be something that has been scientifically proven, that is beneficial even to our neurological, something that, even as we use it, can be able to bring stress reduction, upon our lives. Can it be able to bring, can we be able to have a feel of that sense of like a dopamine, a release effect, for example, we are talking about the aromatology, for example, so those kind of scents, the extractions that have been infused with the mood boosting complexes, that stimulates even our brains and our systems, that triggers confidence. Those are the things that humans nowadays are looking at. So it's not just about having a perfume, for example, but we're looking at something going over and above, something that's going to align the wellness of a person, even to bring that kind of relaxation, whereby as you use a product, you can be able to feel your body is relaxing, your mind is relaxing, and you feel better even in terms of usage of that product. So those are the things that you're talking about when you look at the element of beauty, the element of beauty products in our body, and how it's able to assist us in terms of growing and scaling the wealth creation in terms of the beauty products. Again, also, we are looking at the areas of cosmetics. Okay, cosmetics, the makeups, So it's not just about application of a makeup, for example. It's not just about maybe having the eyebrows, for example, but you're talking about using this cosmetics, okay? Using these makeups in cosmetics, something that's able to give us a leverage, something that's able to give us an edge, that even as we use these products, we can be able to grow, we can be able to have aesthetic beauty around it. We can be able to have those enhancements upon it, so that even as we keep on using the beauty products, things like the foundations, things like the lipsticks, for example, things like the lip gloss, things like the eyeshadows, for example, things like the powders, for example, then we can be able to know that these are products that are working for us. And even as we sell them to the market, for example, if we sell them around to the people all over the world, then we can be very sure and confident that the product that we have is going to be beneficial to this person. It's not going to be detrimental upon them. And that's how, when we combine all this aspect, whereby we can be able to sell products concerning about our skincare, when we can be able to sell products concerning hair care, for example, when you can be able to sell products concerning the fragrance, okay, the perfumes, the colognes, the body mist, okay, the deodorants, okay, those are the things you're talking about. The mascaras, okay, the eye pencils, the eyeshadows, okay, the lipstick, the lip gloss, so that when we come up with a business for these areas, then we can be able to know that whichever area we pick on, then we know that we can be able to venture, we can be able to excel, we can be able to create we can be able to create wealth in those areas. In the dental, for example, if I mention the dental industry, the dentists have also embraced these areas of cosmetics, okay, such that they're able to apply the different components of cosmetics, the different products of cosmetics, the different beauty related products of cosmetics into the dental artistry. If you look, for example, at if you go to a dentist and you say that your teeth has got some spots, maybe it has got some colorations, such kind of things, and maybe your teeth is either turning yellow, to some it's turning like a black, it's kind of like a decay. You see, you want to go to a dentist and you tell them that, hey, I want you to make me well again. I want to be whole again. I want to be as I used to be in those days, with a white milk teeth, kind of. Okay. So what they'll do is that they'll carry out their procedure, of course, and whiten your teeth, for example. So you see, this kind of whitening of your teeth, these are the cosmetics that you're talking about. Okay, so it's finding itself in different areas of human body. So for example, like the glossing of your teeth, sometimes you may want to have a better breath. You have you been to a place and where you stand, when someone speaks, you're like, wow, what kind of, what kind of how even you even fail to turn it. You even fail to turn, you wonder, like, you want to hold you want to cover your nose. You want to cover your nose from what, from the kind of, is it odor, is it a stench, or what is it? Okay, and you've experienced that sometimes. So you may find that such kind of a person with a bad breath odor, okay, such that you want to close your nose so that you may not feel the stench coming out of that person. But when they go to a dentist, they'll be given the breath polishing, okay, they'll be given those kind of sweet aromas, breath polishing, okay, cosmetics for them to be able to use for purpose of their health, so that even that there'll be a sweet, kind of a sugary, maybe kind of like a vanilla scent coming out of that, instead of the bad breath odor. So it's very, very important that even as we look at these areas of cosmetics and how we can be able to venture into it, we need to understand then that we should be able to make it to be unique, something that should be highly distinctive in terms of profile, something that should be able to bring that element even of the sense of elegance, the sense of savory, something aromatic, something that makes you want to be identified with a beautiful odor, with a beautiful kind of like a fruity, juicy aroma that is all around you, to bring that element of luxury, to bring that element of, something that is able to boost even your ego for purpose of, wellness of your body. Wealth creation, as we said, can be found even in the area of cosmetics. So if we only can be able to understand how we can be able to infuse this wealth, infuse these cosmetics together, then we can be able to scale it and use it for purpose of creating that wealth. As an entrepreneur, okay, as a business person, then, or as a person who wants to venture into this, we should be able to understand all these areas and how can we be able to leverage in this information and understanding about cosmetics for us to be able to create that wealth. And I know when we have this kind of information, it will be able to help us to grow to the next level in terms of wealth generation. So tune in to some more podcasts to come, and even on these areas. And you can also let us know which areas would you like us to go in and venture into to bring more information about cosmetics
Okay? Is it about the beautification of it? Is it about the products it's creating? Is it about the aspect of wellness, the type in terms of clinic? Okay? Or which area would you like us to venture in, even in this area of cosmetics, so that we may be able to give you more information on how we can be able to use it for purpose of wealth creation. Thank you very much for listening, and I welcome you to like this podcast. I would like you to also to share this podcast, and also like you to subscribe to this podcast, so that even we may be able to grow together and to reach as many people as possible, so that we may be able to join together even as we seek and pursue to create that wealth in our lives. Thank you, and see you.